What if some of the most enduring healing knowledge ever recorded sits not in a research database, but in pages that have been read for thousands of years? Most people don't pause to think about it, but while we run to the pharmacy for every small complaint, there are plants long described in ancient texts that have been used by human beings for millennia. Plants with a documented history. Plants whose traditional uses are being looked at again, and the overlap with what old herbalists already knew is sometimes hard to dismiss. Today, we look at 20 of them, plants whose story may change the way you think about traditional plant knowledge. Stay with us, because the plant at number 17 was once so valued that it traded for its weight in gold, and a 2003 trial in diabetes care found it lowered fasting blood glucose in people with type 2 diabetes. And number 20 isn't mentioned once or twice in ancient texts. It appears more than 500 times, treated as a symbol of life itself, and modern cardiology is beginning to understand why. So let's get into it. 20 plants with deep roots in ancient herbalist tradition, arranged not by rank, but by the story each one carries. Number 1. Aloe. Most people only know aloe from the bottle on their bathroom shelf. The Egyptians called it the plant of immortality, and it appears in medical texts going back 4,000 years. That's not a small detail. A plant doesn't stay in continuous medicinal use for 40 centuries by accident. Aloe was precious enough in the ancient world to be used in the most respected funerary preparations, in quantities that seemed extraordinary. Modern dermatology hospitals have used aloe gel as a treatment for first and second-degree burns since the 1930s, and a 2007 systematic review in the journal Burns found it shortened healing time by almost 9 days on average compared to standard dressings. The clear gel inside the thick leaves carries more than 70 active compounds, including vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and polysaccharides linked to tissue repair. The traditional use is simple. You split a fresh leaf, you apply the gel directly to a burn or a cut. The cooling relief is immediate. For digestive comfort, aloe juice has long been taken to soothe the gut. Aloe got pushed aside by tubes of synthetic burn cream, but the plant on your windowsill does the same work it has always done. Number 2. Frankincense. Frankincense, Boswellia serrata, is the resin people have burned for more than 5,000 years, and it was once traded as a gift fit for a king. The reason wasn't only its perfume. Boswellic acids, the active fraction in the resin, were shown in a 2003 clinical trial at the University of Mannheim to ease symptoms of moderate osteoarthritis of the knee, with patients reporting less pain and better mobility after 8 weeks. Other trials have explored similar benefits for inflammatory bowel concerns and respiratory ease. Ancient priests burned it in temples for the breath, not only the scent. Traditional use was straightforward. The resin burned for respiratory comfort, mixed into oil for stiff joints, taken internally in some traditions. Quality matters. Real frankincense still commands a premium, just as it did 2,000 years ago. The pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories that replaced it carry their own costs on the stomach, the liver, the heart. The resin does not. Number 3, myrrh. Myrrh shows up alongside frankincense in that famous gift scene, and also in the temple oil recipes. Commiphora myrrha is a resin with serious antimicrobial activity, and ancient practitioners used it for cleaning wounds, easing infections, and keeping the mouth healthy. A 2017 study in the journal Pharmaceutical Biology found myrrh extract active against several strains of Staphylococcus and Candida, including some resistant ones. The traditional mouth rinse, a few drops of myrrh tincture in warm water, is still used by herbalists for gum care. What strikes you about myrrh is that it served both the living and the preparation of the dead. In the ancient world, that bridge between sickness, decay, preservation, and health was understood as one continuous question, and myrrh sat in the middle of it. The taste is intensely bitter, which is part of what made it valued. Bitter stimulates digestive function and carries antimicrobial weight. Number 4, olive. The olive tree appears across ancient texts more than any other plant. The dove with the olive branch, the anointing oil, the instruction to anoint the sick with oil. The olive is woven into the fabric of traditional life. Why? Because olive oil, especially cold-pressed extra virgin, is one of the most thoroughly studied foods in modern nutrition. The PREDIMED trial, a Spanish study of more than 7,000 people published in 2013, found that a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil reduced the rate of major cardiovascular events by about 30% over 5 years. Monounsaturated fats and polyphenols help lower inflammation and support cholesterol balance. But the traditional use went beyond food. Olive oil was applied to wounds, used as a base for medicinal preparations, and trusted for skincare. The anointing of the sick wasn't only symbolic, it was practical. Some of the olive trees in the Mediterranean are believed to be more than 2,000 years old. The same olive oil that anointed kings and supported the sick is in your kitchen right now. Number 5. Hyssop. Hyssopus officinalis appears in some of the most important purification rituals of antiquity, and it wasn't chosen at random. The plant carries real antibacterial activity, and traditional herbalists used it for coughs, bronchitis, and chest congestion. The leaves, dried and steeped, made a tea for respiratory ease. Gargled, the same tea was used for sore throat. Topically, it was applied to wound cleansing. The plant grows as a small, bushy perennial with blue or purple flowers. What's worth pausing on is this. The ancient command to use hyssop for purification wasn't only spiritual, it was practical. An antimicrobial plant in a purification ritual meant the ritual actually reduced disease transmission. People knew, even before they had the vocabulary to explain. A caution. Hyssop essential oil contains pinocampone and is not safe during pregnancy, breastfeeding, in children, or for people with epilepsy. Number 6. Fig. There's an ancient story of a king near death and a prophet who told the attendants to take a lump of figs and apply it to the boil. The king recovered. That's a direct traditional prescription, remembered and recorded. Figs, Ficus carica, contain phycin, an enzyme that breaks down protein, which is part of why fig poultice on a boil, an abscess, an inflamed area works the way it does. The fruit itself is rich in fiber, minerals, and antioxidants. Mashed fresh figs, or dried figs soaked and mashed, then bound to the skin with a cloth, is a remedy you can still find in Mediterranean villages. Figs are still in every market, still nourishing, still useful in the same ways. Number 7. Pomegranate. Pomegranates were so important in ancient life that they were embroidered onto priestly garments and carved into the columns of temples. They appear as a symbol of abundance, and they were valued for their effects on the body. They are also, by measurement, among the most antioxidant-rich foods on Earth. A 2017 review in the journal Pharmacological Research pulled together the cardiovascular data and concluded that pomegranate juice helped lower systolic blood pressure across multiple trials, and a smaller Israeli study found a regression in carotid artery wall thickness in patients who drank the juice daily for a year. The fruit contains punicolagens, polyphenols stronger than those in green tea or red wine. Traditional use included eating the fresh fruit, drinking the juice, and using the rind, which carries even more weight for digestive complaints. The flowers and bark were also used. If you're starting to see the pattern, if you're seeing that ancient texts hold not only spiritual guidance, but also practical plant knowledge that current science is now examining, here is where it gets interesting. We're not even halfway through this list. Number 8. Cedar. The cedar of Lebanon is mentioned more than 70 times in ancient writings, mostly as the chosen material for sacred buildings. Cedar wasn't picked only for strength. Cedrus labani produces aromatic oils that repel insects, resist decay, and carry real antiseptic effects. When ancient texts describe using cedar in protocols around contagious conditions, it wasn't arbitrary. Cedar actively pushed back against contamination. That's why temples built of cedar lasted, and why what was stored inside them lasted too. The great cedars of Lebanon are now protected, but cedarwood essential oil from related species is still available for respiratory support and natural protection against insects. Number 9. Mustard. Mustard was used as a teaching image, the smallest seed that grows into a large plant. But it wasn't only a parable, it was medicine. Mustard plasters, made from ground seeds mixed with water or oil and applied to the chest, were used for centuries for chest colds. The compounds in mustard create warmth and pull blood to the area, which helps break up congestion. Brassica nigra and the related species contain glucosinolates that convert to isothiocyanates, compounds with documented anti-inflammatory activity. A warning though, mustard plasters are powerful and can burn the skin. They must be used with a cloth between the preparation and the body, for short periods only, never on children. Number 10. Mint. Mint was mentioned by name in ancient teachings, valued enough to be tithed. Mint, tithed. That tells you how seriously digestive medicine was taken in a time before antacid tablets. Peppermint oil capsules have been studied for irritable bowel syndrome since the 1970s, and a 2019 meta-analysis in BMC Complementary Medicine found peppermint oil significantly reduced abdominal pain and global IBS symptoms across 12 randomized trials. Peppermint tea after a meal eases indigestion and nausea. Menthol opens airways and can soften tension headaches when rubbed on the temples. The plant grows easily, spreads aggressively, and it's probably already in someone's garden on your street. Number 11. Rue. Rue appears alongside mint in ancient teachings as another herb that was carefully tithed. Ruta graveolens has an intensely bitter taste and was used traditionally for digestive complaints and inflammation, in small amounts only. The plant contains rutin and other flavonoids with anti-inflammatory effects. The important caution: rue contains compounds that can cause photosensitivity of the skin and that affect the uterus. It must not be used during pregnancy. It must be used only in tiny amounts, only under proper herbalist guidance. This is one of those plants where ancient mention doesn't mean unlimited use. It means the plant was valued, but it demanded respect. Rue faded partly because of these safety concerns and partly because gentler digestive herbs took its place. In proper hands, it still represents a truth of traditional medicine, which is that some of the most powerful plants are bitter, intense, and ask for care. Number 12. Coriander. When the people of an ancient migration first saw the food in the wilderness, the description compared it to coriander seed, white, with a taste like wafers made with honey. That comparison tells us coriander was already familiar enough to use as a reference point. Coriandrum sativum, both the seeds and the leaves we now call cilantro, has been used for thousands of years for digestive complaints. The seeds, gently crushed and steeped, settle gas and bloating. A 2009 Iranian trial on irritable bowel syndrome patients found that a coriander seed extract reduced abdominal pain and bloating compared to placebo over 8 weeks. The fresh leaves were used for general digestive support and as part of daily food. Coriander appears in Ayurvedic, Chinese, and Middle Eastern traditions. We never lost it as a spice. We just stopped thinking of it as medicine. Number 13. Cumin. Cumin appears in ancient writings in a passage about agricultural care. The careful handling described tells us it was valuable. Cuminum cyminum has been used for more than 4,000 years for digestive ease. A 2014 Iranian clinical trial published in Complementary Therapies in Clinical Practice gave cumin powder to overweight women for 8 weeks and found reductions in body weight, BMI, and cholesterol compared to the control group. The seeds carry thymoquinone and other compounds with anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Cumin tea for digestive complaints, regular use in cooking for its warming quality. It's a staple in Middle Eastern, Indian, and Mediterranean kitchens. We never stopped using it. We just stopped naming it as medicine. Number 14. Garlic. When the people of an ancient migration complained about their diet in the wilderness, they longed for the garlic of Egypt, not for the flavor. Allium sativum was one of Egypt's most important medicines. The workers building the great monuments were given garlic rations to maintain their strength, and a clay tablet from around 1550 BC, the Ebers Papyrus, lists garlic in more than 20 remedies. Modern cardiology has come around. A 2016 meta-analysis in the Journal of Nutrition pooled 20 trials and concluded that garlic supplementation lowered systolic blood pressure by around 8 points in people with hypertension, an effect comparable to some first-line medications. Garlic carries antibacterial and antiviral activity. It contains allicin and other sulfur compounds with serious therapeutic weight. The traditional use was raw garlic for infections, garlic poultices for wounds, daily use for general vitality. If you take blood-thinning medication, garlic in supplemental doses can interact. Speak with your healthcare provider before adding it. Number 15. Onion. Onions appear right alongside garlic in that ancient longing. Allium cepa carries many of the same sulfur compounds as garlic, along with quercetin, a flavonoid that turns up in study after study on cardiovascular and bone health. Traditional use included onion poultices on the chest for congestion, a remedy that mothers in Eastern Europe were still using a generation ago, and raw onion for infection support. During plague periods, people hung onions in rooms believing they would absorb disease. The mechanism wasn't quite what they thought, but onions do carry antimicrobial activity. Onions are so common now that we've forgotten they were once considered powerful medicine. Number 16. Balm of Gilead. An ancient text asks the question, is there no balm in Gilead? That wasn't only rhetoric. The balm of Gilead was one of the most precious medicines of the ancient world. The true balm, possibly from Commiphora gileadensis, was a resin used for wounds, inflammation, and infections. It was given as a gift to kings and traded along the ancient spice routes. The original plant is now extremely rare, possibly extinct in the wild, and what is sold today under that name usually comes from related Commiphora species, or in North American herbalism, from the buds of certain poplar trees, which have their own resinous, wound-supporting properties. The phrase balm of Gilead entered our language as a metaphor for healing and comfort. That tells you how deeply this knowledge ran. Number 17. Cassia. This is the one that was teased at the start. Cinnamomum cassia, the spice cassia, was valued enough in the ancient world to trade for its weight in gold. It appears in ancient temple oil recipes. Cassia is closely related to cinnamon and shares many of its compounds. A 2003 trial in diabetes care gave 1 to 6 grams of cassia daily to 60 patients with type 2 diabetes, and after 40 days, fasting glucose dropped by 18 to 29% in the cassia groups, along with reductions in cholesterol and triglycerides. The aromatic bark carries cinnamaldehyde and other compounds with therapeutic weight. Cassia was used in anointing oils, as a digestive aid, and for its warming effect on circulation. The spice traveled the Silk Road and was among the most valuable goods of antiquity. If you take medication to regulate blood sugar, speak with your healthcare provider before adding cassia in larger amounts, since interactions are possible. Warming traditional medicine, sealed into temple oil. Number 18. Cinnamon. True cinnamon, Cinnamomum verum, appears in ancient anointing recipes alongside myrrh and cassia. It was even more precious than its cousin. Cinnamon has been studied extensively for blood sugar and lipid markers, and several trials have found that supplementation may improve fasting glucose in people with metabolic concerns. The compounds in cinnamon appear to increase insulin sensitivity. Cinnamon also carries antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects and shows activity against several bacteria and fungi in laboratory work. Traditional use was straightforward. The bark in medicinal preparations, as a digestive aid, burned as incense in healing rituals. The aromatic bark was incorporated into healing oils. Cinnamon is a common spice now, but we've forgotten it was once so valuable that wars were fought over its trade routes. For people on diabetes medication, true cinnamon at culinary levels is safe, but supplemental doses should be discussed with a healthcare provider, particularly because cassia contains higher levels of coumarin, which can stress the liver at high intake. Number 19. Saffron. Saffron, Crocus sativus, appears in ancient love poetry among precious spices, and it is still one of the most expensive on earth. More than 150 flowers are needed to produce a single gram. A 2014 systematic review in the Journal of Integrative Medicine looked at 6 clinical trials of saffron for major depressive disorder and concluded that 30 milligrams of saffron per day was more effective than placebo and comparable to fluoxetine and imipramine in reducing depressive symptoms over 6 to 8 weeks. Other small trials have explored its support of eye health and cognitive function. Traditional use included small amounts of saffron for mood support, digestive concerns, and as a general tonic. The bright red threads were steeped in warm water or milk. Saffron is still expensive, but for those exploring traditional support for low mood, it sits on a path that herbalists have trusted for centuries. The golden threads, valued enough to be named in ancient poetry, still offer something today. Number 20. Vine. The grapevine appears more than 500 times in ancient texts. Wine was used in traditional medicine, and grapes were understood to sustain life. Modern cardiology is now examining what ancient people lived by. The polyphenols in grapes and red wine, particularly resveratrol, are studied for heart support, anti-inflammatory effects, and longevity markers. The so-called French paradox, lower cardiovascular concerns in regions with rich diets, is partly attributed to this tradition of moderate red wine with meals. Traditional use included wine for digestive comfort as a base for other medicines and grapes for nutrition. Even early teachers advised a little wine for the stomach. The vine was so central to ancient life that it became the symbol of connection and sustenance. That wasn't only spiritual. It was recognition of a plant that sustained human health for thousands of years. We never lost the vine. We just separated the symbolism from the practical reality. If you've stayed all the way through this, you've seen something worth knowing. Ancient texts are not only spiritual records, they are also records of traditional plant knowledge, knowledge that worked then and that is being looked at again with fresh eyes. These 20 plants are not folklore. They are part of a long, traceable tradition of human healing. What ancient herbalists understood, and what modern users should keep in mind, is that even the most familiar plants can have effects that require knowledge and care. These insights are shared for informational purposes only and do not replace the advice of a qualified healthcare professional. If you are following medical treatment, several of the plants discussed here have known interactions with medications, including blood thinners, antidepressants, and blood sugar medications. Speak with your doctor or pharmacist before adding any of them to your routine. Before any medicinal use of these plants, particularly during pregnancy, breastfeeding, while on ongoing treatment, or for a child, consult a doctor, pharmacist, or qualified herbalist.